Between 1904 to 1905, Japan, a rising Asian island nation, took on one of Europe's largest empires, and won. In 1901, a dispute over Korea created tensions between Japan and the massive Russian Empire. After moving into Manchuria, Russian forces continued to expand and infiltrate Korea. The Japanese government did not like these. It threatened their homeland directly. Russian leaders largely dismissed Japan's concerns because they viewed Asian nations as inferior. The Japanese government did everything possible to avoid a war with Russia, but Korea was its top priority. It was like a dagger pointed directly at the heart of Japan. Control of the peninsula was seen as essential for national survival. Russia, meanwhile, ignored Japanese warnings and continued expanding eastward. It leased Port Arthur on China's Liaodong Peninsula, after pressuring a weakened China to grant the lease in 1898. The Chinese government was so weak that it had little say in its own territory. Russia also began expanding the Trans-Siberian Railway, to link territories in Asia to Moscow. These pushed Russia's power heavily into the Pacific, and Japan did not like it. Japan tried hard to avoid war, but it seemed inevitable. Between 1903 to early 1904, Japan's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Komura Jotaro, proposed a deal. He declared that Japan would accept Russian dominance in Manchuria, if Russia recognized Japanese predominance in Korea. Tokyo viewed it as a fair arrangement, regarding spheres of influence. Russia dragged its feet, delayed replies for weeks, and offered counter-proposals that felt insulting. Russian Minister for Foreign Affairs, Count Vladimir Lambsdorff, refused to discuss Manchuria, and instead proposed that Japan recognize Manchuria as outside its sphere, while Korea would have a neutral zone north of the 39th parallel, with Russia keeping troops west and north of the Yalu River. They wanted Japan to declare Manchuria entirely outside its interests, accept a large neutral zone in northern Korea, limiting Japanese troops, and restrict its actions on the peninsula. Many Russian diplomats and leaders viewed Japan as a backward, second-rate Asian power that wouldn't dare challenge the Tsar's might. Some Russians openly classified the Japanese as racially inferior. These wasn't just bad negotiating, it was a fatal miscalculation. Japan's leaders, including the relatively dovish elder statesman, Ito Hirobumi, concluded Russia was stalling to build up forces while never intending real concessions. Prime Minister Katsura Taro's government prepared for war while making one final diplomatic push. Even the Japanese sovereign, Emperor Meiji, urged restraint, out of concern over war with Russia. When Russia ignored deadlines and kept reinforcing its absurd demands, Japan broke off relations on February 6, 1904. Sergei Witte was Russia's finance minister, and architect of its industrialization. After visiting Japan in 1896, he was struck by its modernization. He warned the Tsar not to underestimate Japan's strength. He understood the situation far better than others in Moscow had imagined, and urged compromise over Korea and Manchuria, but was replaced as finance minister in 1903. On the night of February 8, 1904, without a formal declaration of war, Japan launched a surprise torpedo attack on the Russian Pacific Fleet at Port Arthur. This tactic was later studied by Japanese planners before the attack on Pearl Harbor. They quickly seized the initiative, and Japanese forces landed in Korea. They advanced into Manchuria and besieged Port Arthur. Land battles like Mukden were brutal. These battles ran from February 20 to March 10, 1905. Both armies dug into trenches around Mukden, with Russia fielding about 300,000 men, and Japan, around 270,000. Japan pinned Russia with frontal attacks, while two other Japanese armies tried outflanking moves on both sides to cut off their retreat. After a week of heavy fighting, the Russian right began to crumble. On the 9th of March, they began to pull back north, to avoid being trapped. Russia lost Mukden and suffered around 90,000 casualties, while Japan lost 75,000. It was the largest ground battle before World War I, with Japan prevailing through aggression and better coordination, despite heavy casualties. At the Battle of Tsushima, Admiral Togo Hihikairo's fleet annihilated Russia's Baltic fleet, which had sailed all the way around the world. It was one of history's most lopsided naval victories. Japan lost just a few torpedo boats, but Russia lost nearly its entire fleet. Russia was overextended, plagued by poor leadership, long supply lines, and growing domestic unrest. Japan fought near home, with shorter lines, better trained forces, high morale, and command of the sea. By mid-1905, both sides were exhausted. Japan had won the battles, but was financially drained and low on manpower. Russia faced revolution at home. The 1905 Russian Revolution was partly triggered by military defeats. But Japan worried it could not continue the war, as the country was severely running out of money to keep fighting. Its leaders knew they couldn't win a long war with Russia. To avoid a war of attrition, they began to look for ways to resume peace talks with Russia. Though the country maintained its stance of not appearing weak, it was hoping for foreign mediation to end the war. In May 1905, Japanese Foreign Minister Baron Komura Jotaro and Ambassador Takahira Kogoro asked U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt to mediate peace with Russia. The president agreed after Russia accepted, and mediated peace talks between both nations in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The treaty disappointed many in Japan. Russia recognized Japan's paramount interests in Korea, which Japan formally annexed in 1910. Russia also transferred its lease on Port Arthur, and the southern part of the South Manchurian Railway to Japan. Japan gained control of the South Manchurian Railway, and mining rights. Russia ceded the southern half of Sakhalin Island to Japan. Both sides agreed to evacuate Manchuria, and respect China's territorial integrity and equal commercial opportunity there. Notably, there was no large cash indemnity for Japan. Russia was not required to pay war reparations. It also kept the northern half of Sakhalin Island. The Trans-Siberian Railway north of Manchuria remained under Russian control. Many Japanese felt they've gained little, despite winning the war. The Japanese public bitterly resented the treaty, leading to riots in Tokyo. Roosevelt won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906 for brokering the deal, and Japan emerged as a recognized great power. Thank you for watching. To find out more interesting historical videos like these, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications so you won't miss any future uploads.